Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Friday, the 18th of April. And it's also Good Friday. So, happy Good Friday to everybody. So, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we're going to talk about how the shop is going, certain repairs, and certain things that we're learning week by week. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Friday, April 18th. It's also Good Friday, going into the holidays, and for you that have kids, it's also spring break. Yippee, right? So, what are we talking about today? We're talking about how the shop is doing right now, and that is we're doing considerably better. We've spent most of this week picking stuff up, getting it repaired, and back out. That's what it's all about, right? But this is the normal time of year where it does pick up, where we start seeing more units. People are starting to think lawn and garden, more in their yards. We had a spell here a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, of where Mother Nature kind of threw a curveball at us and had it go right up into the upper 60s, almost 70 degrees out, and it was beautiful. Only to give us 3 inches of snow this past week. So, like this morning, I don't think there's a frost out there. We had a heavy frost yesterday, but that's spurring a lot of our customers to dig their stuff out, give us a call. Most of the stuff that we work on, we actually pick up and drop off. So the customer, it's all ready to go. We go into the garage or their shed. Most times we have to shoot some carb cleaner in it and put the jump pack on it to get it started, to get it back out onto the trailer. And then we get it back to the shop to work on it. And a lot of times it's just there for a general service, right? We saw it last spring when we did a service then. And hopefully all it needs is just another service. So that brings us into what we have in the shop. And not always believing what the customer tells you. If they tell you everything is good and you get on it and one wheel is going that direction while the other is this way with the steering wheel where it's supposed to, they've hit something hard enough to bend that wheel. So that was the first one we encountered yesterday. We brought it in, put it up on the jack, not the lawnmower hoist, but the regular floor jack. Sure enough, they had hit something hard enough force that they actually bent that whole mechanism so that it was sitting off at a canter, but it was also tipped out. So Claude got out a crescent wrench with a cheater bar and bent everything back into place. He's got a knack for that. We also had a sweeper come in that they said they could get it to start, but it wouldn't run. So I ended up tackling that, took the air breather off, and I went to loosen up the carburetor, and the nuts were loose already on it. So I tightened up the nuts on it, put the carburetor, the air breather back on, fired right up. It was sucking air, and that's why it wasn't running right. See, we're like doctors, right? We have to look at our patients and try to figure out what's going wrong with it. And we go by the things that it's doing, right? Does it have a cough? Does it? And a lot of times we have to go right to the basics of draining the fuel because we never trust anybody else's fuel, checking compression, checking spark, and then making sure that it has good airflow. If it has all of that, it'll run. So we probably got around 8, 9 lawnmowers in the yard. We've got a 6-wheeler. We've got a 4-wheeler we just kicked out yesterday. We've got 3 tractors that we're working on. One's ready to be picked up tomorrow morning. So things have been going pretty good. That brings us to the 6-wheeler. The 6-wheeler it ran good. My husband was plowing the driveway and he parked it. and we can't get it to run since. That was the drift of it. And there's supposed to be a new battery sitting there, but there was no battery. And they're like, well, we're willing to spend $2,000 to $3,000 to get it running compared to having to buy something to replace it. I could see that, but the unit itself wasn't worth $500. But we got it loaded on, got it back to the shop, and one of the things we noticed was the engine was stuck. I'm telling you right now, you can't make this stuff up. But my son, he's a lot stronger than I am, of course. He tried pulling on the rewind and it wouldn't turn. So we hooked up jump pack to it when we got it back to the shop and tried using the key to start it. And we got the cylinder moved just a little bit and then deadheaded. And that's with the spark plug out. So we ended up putting some PV blaster into the spark plug hole and letting it sit. And hopefully any issues in there, if it was turning over fine when they parked it, then that's half the battle. But if it's not even turning over, you're not going to get it to run, right? So, I mean, I explained to the customer, because she asked how things were going. So I said, well, we have right now your piston and rings soaking because we're having a problem trying to turn it over. And to be honest with you, it's not worth $2,000 to $3,000 to put into it. But I said, let me see what I can do with the cylinder part of it. So we're good with that. And then the tractor was just simply changing it from 6 to 12. And when we got there to pick it up, all of a sudden now it's not running. It hasn't run in 2 to 3 years, and we can't get it to start. See, that's a long ways off from all I need is just to change it from a 6 to a 12. Now you have a non-running tractor that we have to step in and do a compression check on it to make sure that all the cylinders have got enough compression to fire. And a lot of times when them old girls sit for a while, they'll have very little compression because the rings will rust into the piston, right? And but all you can do is, an old timer taught us, is get a bottle of Coke and you just pour Coke into each cylinder where the spark plug is and let it sit. And the Coke is so corrosive that it actually will take the rust right off from the piston and rings and the cylinder wall. Weird, huh? Yet a lot of people drink that crap. So we usually use PV blaster. You know, and we take and we check it when we first start. If it's got 0 to 20, let's say, we write all the numbers down, put PV blaster on it, let it sit for a few days, turn it over again, see if our compression's coming up. And we have, on many occasions, brought an engine that had low compression up to where it needed to be just by simply doing those tricks, just working at it slowly and allowing the PV blaster enough time, or you can use Coke, to eat away at that rust and make the springs malleable again, because springs are under compression, right? And they're pushing out towards the cylinder wall, and that's where you get your compression when your piston's coming up. If your rings aren't doing what it's supposed to, then the air can go past the rings. Thus, you lose compression, right? And then just as important, you have the wiper ring that keeps the oil from going straight through into the base. So that's where you don't want to take what the customer tells you as being 100% positive. You know, it always changes from the time we start to the time we get there, something has changed. And with that six-wheeler and that tractor, they were both running, and then there was a hiccup with the six-wheeler and they couldn't get it to start. It would crank over. And she was talking this year, and in fact, it's been sitting there for 3 years. The tractor had been sitting there for 2 to 3 years, and she wanted to get him running again. And I tried to explain to her, the worst thing you could ever do is let something sit very long. You need to go out and start it. You need to go out and make sure everything is going to work the way it should, right? So the next thing I thought I'd bring up as a topic is, what's the reasonable price to go pick up something and take it back? And I can tell you right now that we don't charge enough. And when I say that we don't charge enough, I mean, I know what it costs in fuel. I know what it costs because I have Claude with me, so he's hourly. He's getting paid for going and picking stuff up and taking it back. Anytime that we're out of the shop doing a pickup or drop off, we're not getting actual labor costs in that week, right? And one of the other things that you can do, or is to farm that out, and that is find somebody that is willing to do the pickups and drop offs. Maybe somebody that's retired, that enjoys driving, but you're going to have to supply them with a truck and trailer, right? And they're going to have a valid ID, and they're going to have to be somebody you can trust when they're out of your site, because it is those pieces of equipment, whether it's my dually or my FX4, are very expensive. And my take on it is, if you can get enough work in the shop without having to go get stuff, don't do it. But if you're like us, where we are reliant on getting that work, or we don't have work, we don't have enough people, customers that have trailers or what have you, to get it to us. Now, if you make the trucking, the pickup and drop off high enough, they'll figure out a way to get it to you, right? So maybe it's more about teaching your customer how to get stuff to you. Because I know that most people are resourceful and they look at dollars and cents. And I compared us to other people in the area of what trucking costs, moving stuff around, and how expensive that can be. So if you make the trucking costs high enough for the pickup and drop off, then good chances are they'll figure out a way, or they'll have a brother or brother-in-law that's got a trailer that can get it to you. But we make that part of the service. We try to do it from start to finish, so that our customer does not have to do a lot other than pay us, right? So that brings us to spring inventory. What do you need to have for inventory when it comes to parts? We buy our oil filters by the case, and there's basically 3 different types. You have the Briggs, the Kohler, and the Honda Kawasaki. Now, are there going to be specialty filters for certain ones? Yes. John Deere has got the no service where you just pop it off and put it on, but they are very expensive. And a homeowner could do that. That's the idea, is to get rid of us middlemen and have it go direct. And for the cost that it is for the filter, I mean, it'd be cheaper to have us do it, because we're doing the front to back. Most customers that have that unit, which John Deere is not taking into consideration, or they are, and they're hoping that they'll be back sooner than later, is that when that customer just does the no oil change, they're not checking everything else. They're not greasing the front end, they're not greasing the spindles, they're not sharpening the blades, they're not doing all the extras that we do. So I think that's where John Deere kind of came short on that. It was a great idea per se, but if that's all you think that us repairmen do is just change the oil, I got news for you. We do a front to back, and most of us can do it within an hour. So you got an hour's labor plus parts. And the last one we did that was for John Deere, that was last fall, and I want to say that filter was almost $70. The no oil change filter has oil come right in it or something. But it depends on how many units that you're going to have. If you're just doing nights and weekends, then buying it as you need it, that's fine. But if you're running a shop, you need to understand the 3 basic filters and buy it by the case. I buy by the cases. So you have the Briggs, the Kohler, and the Honda Kawasaki's. Plugs. RC12YC. I buy them by the 100 packs. That's going to be probably the plug that is the go-to plug for most of your machines. And we do. We swap out the plugs on everything. And we just had one in yesterday that I swapped the plugs out. And I knew we put brand new plugs on it last year, but you could see a lot of dark grit and everything from where the plug was getting wore out. So it needed a new plug. We also put a brand new fuel filter on it to boot. And we have one fuel filter that we use on all of our riding lawnmowers. I know each fuel filter is supposed to be the microns and yada yada yada, but we found one filter that works well on all of them. And I can post that if any of you guys are interested in what we're using. I can do the same thing with oil filters, and spark plugs. If any of you guys want a part number that we're using or what have you, I'll be happy to add it in the next videos. But that's something you're going to use every time because you're going to change it out. The only thing you're not going to be changing out every time is the air filter. I find if we put a new air filter in it this year, it's going to be good for 2 to 3 years anyways. And for those 2 to 3 years, you can just simply take your air hose with your blower and just blow your air filters out. Take the pre-filter, clean it all up. And a lot of times if the pre-filter isn't in that bad a shape, that tells me that neither are the regular filter. So in those cases, you're blowing it out. And to stock a lot of air filters could get expensive. Those you probably should go as you need them. I know that there's like 4 or 5 different ones that we use a lot, so I stock them. I get them ordered at the beginning of the year, and we're putting in orders right now about once a week for parts, and that's mainly because people are calling for mower blades. They want the blades, and that's the other thing you have to take into consideration too, is that prices are going to go up. They've already started. And my customers are already starting to whine a little bit because we went from, on average, $12 a blade to $15 this year. And it's because it's costing us more money. It's not because we're trying to get more out of the customer. We have to pass that on. That's what businesses do, is if we get a raise in costs, you pass it on to your customer. And you can only pass on just so much. We've kept our labor rate fairly low. We've tried to keep our parts low. If it's a part that I have here from last year, then of course it's going to go for last year's price. And you're going to say, well, Eric, to replace that, you're going to have to pay more to get that in. Yes. And the next person that needs that, if I had to order it in, is going to have to pay the higher cost. It's not because I'm raising my costs. It's because the costs are being raised on me. And I relay that to my customer. I show them if they really are that adamant about the cost of the service. I can show, and it wouldn't be the first time, to show them what wholesale costs of what I'm paying and what they're getting charged. That tends to settle them down in a hurry. If you're paying $10 for an air filter and you're charging $22, that's a hard one when it comes to showing the customer. But if you're paying $10 for it and you're selling it for $12 to $14, it's different. You know what I mean? You got to make money on parts and labor. And a lot of more customers are asking if they can order the parts, if we're willing to do the labor. And one of the things that I bring up to them is, okay, yeah, but here's the deal. If you have the wrong part here and I have to order the right part, I'm going to charge you for doing so, and it's going to slow the whole process down because now I'm waiting on parts to come in. It still is cheaper if you just let me go ahead and get the stuff that we need in and out and be done with it. Let me know in the comments, how you're doing right now when it comes to your shop, how you address the pickup and drop off if you do have to do pickup and drop offs. What are you carrying for inventory this time of year? Are you carrying a lot? Are you not carrying anything? Are you doing it just job by job? I'm curious to know. And then lastly, are you allowing your customers to bring parts to you and then just charge them for the labor? Some businesses do that. And what I find is kind of like a domino effect. If you start allowing that, you might as well allow it for all of them because it'll get around. So on that note, you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. If I don't do a video this weekend, we'll see how things go. And on that note, you guys have a great day.